What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am Christopher, being with Tactical Advantage, and today we're going to talk about the draw and the 1-inch square.
MagTech is the only freedom seed I use on the range. I personally have over 100,000 rounds downrange of MagTech, and it's unbelievably reliable, very accurate, and a great value. Pick some up for your next range trip wherever you shop for range supplies.
So what's up, everybody? So a couple weeks ago, and lately I've been on a kick about trying to increase my consistency. Not necessarily improve performance, but improve my ability to deliver the performance I currently have more regularly or on a more refined or on-demand basis. And one thing I've been working on is my presentation to finite aiming references, or lack of a better way to put it, a 1-inch square. And I found a couple things. This is something I've done in the past, but I never really focused on it. And this has become a pretty important part of my dry fire over the last several weeks. And I'm starting to see some significant yield from it. So using a very small reference for presentation does a couple things. And I just jotted a couple ideas down. One being it forces you to have impulse control. If you actually want to hit a finite aiming reference, you have to either clutch, put the brakes on, make corrections, all of these things, which when we're normally working on draws in particular, we tend not to do. We want to chase speed, we want to go after things, we have a big open target from a relatively close distance, so we're just working on like gross action. Not the correction pieces or things like that. So this has helped me significantly with that. Next, I want to be in a position that no matter what, I am 100% control in decisive shot placement. So not just here or here, but anywhere on this target, wherever I want to place a hole, I can place a hole at will. Now I know that sounds simple. But a lot of times I think dry fire doesn't necessarily equate to that when I see how people are approaching the refinement of physical task. This again has helped me a lot with that over the past couple weeks. 3, it's very interesting for me because it's permissive of correction. From any kind of physical task, getting the gun exactly where you want it 100% of the time is not gonna happen. That's where people get confused with perfection versus consistent. But using very small targets, you actually permit yourself to make the correction, to say, oh, that's not right, let's fix it, regardless of time. So those reps, every rep is useful. So even if you don't make a par time or something like that, you've forced yourself to make the correct decision to make that shot count, and that pays dividends on the range. So again, these are just things that have kind of popped up to me that I'm happy with going forward with this. It's certainly not as, returning on ego as popping like 70 draws, 65 draws, things like that. But it's forcing me to do what I know how to do. And go, okay, get the gun where I want it. If it's not where I want it, fix it, send the shot. And lastly, it teaches, I left out the R in throttle control. That is not throttle control, that's throttle control. A lot of times we put throttle control as it's relating to shot speed or splits or transitions. But I think throttle control really applies to the draw, and rarely do I see it brought into the conversation. Is the same draw to a full ACD target the same draw I want to use for a 1-inch square? Well, some of it certainly, but some of it not so much. So like the administrative portion of the draw, the clear, the grab, the marry, things like that, absolutely. But once I get the gun out and I'm really refining to take a shot, that's precise, for lack of a better way to put it. Some things change. How quickly you're actually getting the gun ready, how heavy are you on the trigger, all of these things come into play. And it's been enlightening to spend more time with it than I had before. So to give you guys an idea, I'm gonna be much closer than I normally would be, but I wanna stay in frame. Normally in my dry fire, I have a very similar target, and I'll be at 5 to 7 yards. I'm fortunate enough to have that kind of room. If you do not, I would suggest thinking about even shrinking the targets further down than I have. And this is the new Tactical Advantage target. The only reason this target's here right now is because it has a series of 1-inch squares to play with. But we'll go to the head and we'll just not try and push, not try and do anything. Let's just get a draw, a controlled draw to that 1-inch square. Good. Hopefully you guys can see that with all the light, but that was right here. We didn't see a bunch of left and right lateral movement of underneath the trigger press or while the trigger press is happening, or direct motion either pre or post. That's kind of what we want. So we'll just try a little quicker. Good. Now it's not super fast, but one thing I want you to notice is the administrative portion of the draw. That is no different than my normal open target draw. Where I'm changing things is I'm being a little more careful. And I don't even know that careful is the word, but a little more mindful of the information I'm getting from the target, the sights, the gun, my hands, all of these things. One more time. So we saw a little bit of action there where I'm just seeing a little bit of a J hook. And this is why a laser pistol is kind of handy. I see all this in my sights, but you cannot see it. So a laser pistol, you'll see the action of the trigger right at break and then through the break. Is that tremendously a big deal? No, but it tells you something. It tells you the gun's not stable. So let's try one more time. Just try and be a little bit more stable. Okay, I'm pretty good with that. Little bit of up, down. One more. Good with that. So just that head allows us to kind of, okay, this is what's happening with my trigger. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there, and I'm having to put in some semblance of control. So now what I'd like to do is put a par time on it. I've got a 1.5 second par time in my timer. And I'm not super interested on whether I hit that par time. It's just a measurement. But what I am interested in is, can I fix the problem and not let the timer influence an incorrect shot? Maybe yes, maybe no, but it does lend itself to the consistency side of dry fire versus the performance side, which I believe is significantly more important. So we'll get a couple 1.5s in here. We'll try the head again. Okay, so pretty close. Let's try in the alpha, the upper right. So now we're gonna say, okay, I know I can do it. Can I do that to anywhere on the target? So maybe we'll just work around in a counterclockwise direction. And let's see how that works out. Same par. Okay. Next. Okay. Little bit less control on that one than I'd like. We'll do the one to the left. That was a little better. Good with that. Now the upper left. Whoa, I got a little impatient on that one and sent it off to the right. So we do not want to stop on that repetition. We'll do one more. Good. Now that one was nice. Dead placement on the dot, no movement post. That's exactly what we want. So now we'll go back to the head. I'll do one or two more, and then we'll test it with some other things. So back to the head. Good. Happy with that. So now I'm getting that feeling of control, and it's starting to flow, not pushing. not doing much of anything that I don't want to do. So now we'll take the same thought process. We've got that semi dialed in. Let's go to a 3x5 card. So a little bit more open area of a target, but now that I've really drilled in that consistent kind of feeling, I'll give myself a little bit more room. Now, what I don't want to see here is a lot more upset in the gun. That negates everything we just tried to do. I want to apply the same level of control. However, I have a little bit more space, not less control, and hoping I work within that space. All right, here we go. Same 1.5. Good, happy with that. I think we can take that time down just a little bit. Again, not trading control for speed. This is a 120, so we'll try that. Good, happy. Beating that soundly. And then we're seeing pretty stable dot movement. We'll do one more. Okay, a little bit more forgiving, but I was still within the target. So I'm showing you guys all this this is legitimately how I'm dry firing lately. I'm using very small targets and forcing myself to understand control, not letting this thing dictate what I'm doing, not letting the want of a hole or a red dot to appear on the target to dictate what I'm doing all of this to make sure my sights are stable, my trigger press is sound, and I'm creating repetitions that are returning on the thing I'm actually trying to work on. And control, consistency, all of these things will make you a better shooter, not just speed. Because this can be, once it's learned and understood, can be appropriated towards raw, nasty speed. You just have to learn to understand that you have gears and you have a clutch. Once you understand that, you can start doing very interesting things with the gun. So, this is part of a larger thing I'm trying to do over the course of a couple weeks. I'm going to show you guys some different things that I'm dry firing with in hopes to tie this all up together with a drill in a few weeks that I think will be very interesting to run. And hopefully I'm going to prepare you ahead of time for what that means and what that looks like. So with that, try it, man. Small targets. Cut them in half. Anything you can get, a 1-inch circle, 1-inch square. If you're this close as much as we were today, maybe even half of that, and start playing with it as part of your dry fire. It'll teach you a couple things. If you've ever heard the term, pick a spot on the target, that's kind of what this will help you do. Start learning to be 100% in charge of where that gun goes and what that gun does. It will change the way you shoot. So with that, I will see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.